Hare Krishna, all glories to Guru and Gauranga. I'm making this video on behalf of a video which came to my attention from His Grace Shukadev Goswami Prabhu. He makes this round, this question round, astrology question round. And there was two preachers which I very much appreciate also. It was Avesha Prabhu who was asking, does devotees get influenced by their horoscope, yes or no, or by astrology? And what is astrology was a question of Balaram Keshava Prabhu, who's also an important preacher here in Mauritius, because these two personalities was bringing forward this extremely important question. I feel somehow I want to churn the ocean and also shorten my explanation of what is astrology and answer the question if devotees are influenced by the horoscope. And there is whirling a lot of really confusing content and statements about what is astrology and if we get influenced by the stars, you know, like inside of Iskcon. I never could understand why it's like this. Even really very advanced devotees who have great attachment to Krishna present this not philosophical correct on my humble opinion. So much confusion about astrology, what astrology is and if we get influenced or not and how. And of course there is half-enlightened astrology and full enlightened astrology. But there are also bogus gurus. We have also a lot of gurus on this planet. Does this mean that all the gurus are proper? You know, there are half-enlightened gurus and there are full enlightened gurus, right? So in the same way that, for example, if some astrologers are still not completely, let's say, trained in astrology or not enough trained in astrology, does not mean that astrology in itself is bogus. If you really understand astrology in the right way, it's very, very helpful. Attachment to Krishna is the most important. However, for the future generations in Iskcon, Vedic astrology, which was practiced by the Supreme Lord himself, have to get his fame back. And so I want to give my little humble contribution to it by just explaining some few things. Please stay on the track. First of all, we must understand that we are not our horoscope. We are eternal spiritual soul. And like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yantra Rudayi Mayaya, the spiritual soul is sitting on a machine. And it's very important to know this machine. And this is actually astrology. Because Mars shows how you will act or how you was actually in your previous birth get used to act. And Venus shows how you in your previous birth, your inclination to love, how you will love, and Mercury will show you how you will think, okay? So Mercury will show how you think, and Jupiter will show your inner voice and your spirituality and your ethic principles. I don't want to explain now about Rahu, but Rahu is actually your desire, your material desire, why you get a material body. So it's very extremely important to get to know your destiny. You know how also it's explained in the Bhagavad Gita that the spiritual soul is taking mentalities from one body to the next body, like a wind who waves over a field, like a strawberry field, then a mango tree field, then it's a mix between strawberries and mangoes. You know, understand what I mean? We take certain kinds of mentalities. And these mentalities are shown in the horoscope. This is from where we develop. And that is also very important to note. You get all this information, you have a manual about yourself. okay? Material nature is your conditional nature, and you can study the purport of, for example, 930 of Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada speaks about conditional nature and constitutional nature. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also said you have to situate yourself on both levels. You know, like, for example, you have to see what is your conditional nature and situate yourself accordingly, because your body needs certain kind of food. You will love in a certain kind of way. For example, if you would be married with a person who has another liking or has another Mars, like opposition to your Mars, she or he will act 180-degree opposite of what you will act. And if you have somebody who has a Mercury, you know, in opposition to you, you will speak Chinese to each other. So astrology is a manual, first of all for yourself, to understand your conditioning, you know, your contamination in the material nature, and then also to understand others and make things more effective. So that was one thing what I think is very important. And having this code on of the material nature, you know, we change very slow, because when you come in here, then you come in the time and space prison. It's Durga, it's a prison house out of time and space as a spiritual soul. And you apply this, also you get, how to say, let's say contaminated, or it's like suit and tie, or like clothes. The horoscope is like your clothes, where you, the spiritual soul, are in. And you get, you know, influenced by this, because you are actually identified with material nature. The tongue is the spiritual soul, okay? Let's think like this. The tongue is the spiritual soul. And the tongue is in the sock. You know, if I put now a sock over my tongue, you understand? I mean a sock from, you know, socks, okay? Then, of course, you try to taste the perverted taste of the real thing, you know, you try. The tongue is going in the outside world and trying to taste what it is actually have to taste in the spiritual world. So, but the sock is somehow reflecting the mentality, you know, or how you say, there's one word, it's distortion. Distort the original mentality, I mean your real personality, into the material nature, and you're seeking, you know, to, for example, action Mars in a distorted way. You know, like you go outside where you should go inside, where your real identity is. Yes, that's very important. With this horoscope, you're looking for fulfillment in the material world. It's your yantra, it's your machine. These brothers and sisters, Matajis and Prabhus, let us remind that we are in an organic whole. Like, for example, there are cells in my body, okay? There are different kinds of living entities living inside of my body. In the same way, we are living in a whole body of the universal form, which is very much powerful. The material nature, so to say. We are living in this. We are swimming as spiritual soul, so to say, in this material nature. And it's very important to understand this material nature, because it's our prison house. We have to understand our prison house a little bit better. The sun and the moon, you understand it has an effect on you. I mean, the sun, if you, for example, live in Sweden where there's little sun, you will be more depressive. If you live in Mauritius or in Spain or in some sunny country, you will feel that the people are more light and jolly-hearted, or not so depressive. The sun has an effect. The moon has an effect. So what I want to say, we are in an organic body, and I mean, not only because the sun is by accident is in the in a certain kind of edge to bring light to the moon in the night does not mean that the other planets not influence you, you know, like because you don't see them, because the sun is bringing not the light there, you know, like it's like we are in a morphogenetic field of all this, you know, planets, even if you not see them or they are so bright up, you understand what I mean? The Venus and Jupiter, you might not see them so bright like the moon or the sun, but still these planets are there, and you are in the body of this. And look yourself on Google Maps, you are so small, okay? And you're so tiny, so like you are a cell in the huge body, and you have to swim like the waves are, you know, like the waves are moving you. You get moved by the material nature. And that's very interesting to understand how you get moved. And of course, now we're coming to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The consciousness is free. And therefore, you know, you create with your consciousness slowly your next body, which will be, in most of the cases, a material body, because you are an illusion and you're identified with the body. But if you wake up, you prepare your Siddha Deha, and Krishna consciousness is not more and less than this. Last but not least, it is actually arrogant in one sense to proclaim or even demand that one is free, totally free of karma and totally free of all the reactions and misdeeds from previous life. And if you study Srimad Bhagavatam carefully, you see many stories of devotees who accepted their karma or their destiny. Even the Lord himself pretends to accept one destiny to give actually an example of how a devotee should act. And at least also in my personal astrology praxis, where I coached persons who practice Bhakti Yoga, I can see that they are learning from their karma. Last but not least, the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita is to learn or to live with what is there. Situate yourself in your present nature, understand your present nature, and from there develop a change in the consciousness, which is actually the crucial point. So in this way you cannot change your full expressed karma. If you have a Chinese body or an African body or an European body, you cannot bring that body back and say, I want to have another body, without you have to die. So the sun in the horoscope shows your stage, your ego, your main point. The moon in this incarnation shows the bhava, the mood from which you approach the life. All the planets, Mars, Mercury, they show your mentality in this lifetime. And the 120 years of planetary periods, they show you which karma or which scene get into motion, into your life, into your destiny. What will exactly be the story which you have to experience. But again, due to actions in Bhakti Yoga and devotional service, of course you have the freedom to develop a spiritual body and to approach your old karma, your full expressed karma in a new way, but you have to deal with it. That is my point. And if you allow me to come to a first conclusion, the mood of a devotee normally is, I would have deserved much more horoscopes and much more incarnations and much more karma. How far I understand it, mood of a devotee is not to beam it out, not to get rid of it, but to accept and understand it. Understand it, and actually I should have deserved much more karma than what I see in my present horoscope. And if the obstacles which I have in my present life, and which are seen in my horoscope, are the last obstacles I ever would have to experience. That would be actually an undescribable mercy from the Lord. So in my understanding, this mood is much more the mood of a devotee than to think, oh, I'm so free, I'm so beyond of all the influences of the universe, and I'm so transcendental. And as I said, the tensions in your horoscope, difficult aspects, difficult house positions, that has to be understood as past life obstacles. It's all stuff on which we have to work in this incarnation. Dear listener, if you're more interested in this science of psychological past life obstacles seen in the horoscope, there's the option to invite me. I would love to give actually a class about these kind of things. It's definitely one of my responsibilities. So I hope this was helping and wish you all the best, and hope you was getting some insight of this, and thank you for your attention. Your humble servant, Jaidev Das.